Emotional and social development in late adulthood. Mental illness after age 65 years old is less prevalent than at any other life period. This may be due to selective mortality, with the mentally disordered dying earlier due to compromised immune function, more cardiovascular disease, and years of overextending coping resources. Lower rates of mental illness can also be due to better mental health and leaving symptoms behind by adjusting better to life stressors. Ego integrity versus despair is the eighth and final crisis in Erik Erikson's psychosocial development theory. This is the era of old age, over 65. Feelings of acceptance of self and feelings of fulfillment come with being able to look back with pride at life accomplishments. This is a reckoning with one's life. Contentment, satisfaction, completeness, and serenity accompany ego integrity. The good and bad, successes and failures, joy and disappointment that inevitably are experienced with relationships, jobs, parenting, and leisure activities are accepted as contributions to life's meaning. The uplifting realization that one's life is a spoke in a huge wheel of world humanity enhances the ego integrity felt. Death is not dreaded as dire doom or feared demise, as the elderly with ego integrity contemplate their own life as a link in a long chain of extended human existence. Also in old age, people with ego integrity have self-acceptance along with hope. They entertain future plans to improve on the self they have accepted. Despair and bitterness result if all a person is able to muster when looking back over life are missed opportunities and bad choices. This old person is unpleasant to be around, negative, complaining, mad at the world. Time is short and there are no chances to turn things around. The person feels bitter, defeated, hopeless. He or she is full of regret, non-acceptance of impending death, and contempt. Fingers of blame are pointed at others, and deep despair makes this person miserable with self. It sure is a lot better to have ego integrity. Robert Peck cites three objectives of Erikson's ego integrity versus despair crisis. The duty of the first one, ego differentiation versus work role preoccupation, involves finding self-worth in substitute endeavors after retiring from a demanding career. Family, friends, and community work must fill the void. The duty of the second objective, body transcendence versus body preoccupation, involves rising above physical limitations brought with aging. Advanced cognitive, emotional, and social talents replace or overshadow loss of youthful appearance, balance, motor ability, strength, and immunity to disease. Body transcendence relies on psychological strengths. With acceptance of life's changes comes agreeableness. The third objective's duty, ego transcendence versus ego preoccupation, involves making life worthwhile for the next generation after own death. Ego transcendence versus ego preoccupation includes accepting death and valuing a larger future. There is a more advanced spirituality that may or may not include religion. Meaning of life can be found in nature, in art, in relationships. For some, symbols and traditions and ceremonies of organized religion enable meaning of life. For the most reflective, connections to others, awareness that own set of beliefs is only one of many viewpoints, and accepting of uncertainty, to these a higher level of spirituality is reached. Erik Erikson's widow, Joan, takes her husband's and Peck's theories further. She adds a ninth psychosocial stage called gerotranscendence. This stage projects beyond the self and beyond satisfaction of the life lived to this point. It requires plenty of quiet reflection, resulting in serene peace and inner calmness, without withdrawing from others or current events. The elderly have more time to keep abreast of current events and are much more committed to voting. Gisela Lebouviev's theory says that emotional expertise is displayed by the elderly as their affect optimization improves. As information processing or memory skills decline with age, emotional self-regulation strengthens. The elderly are more skilled in enhancing positive emotions and minimizing negative ones. They are more in touch with their feelings before they make decisions. They control emotions internally using emotion-focused coping. In old age, people enjoy reminiscing. This reflection of the past can be quite positive unless it is focused on bitterness and a means to escape from the present. Reviewing life using reminiscence can help with mourning and bereavement of loved ones and proceeding on with life. Giving too much assistance and giving too little are each as guilty as the other in contributing to the psychological non-health of the elderly. Some daily life assistance that allows an elderly person with energy limitations to enjoy and invest in other more meaningful pursuits is optimal. Too much daily life assistance that takes away all control for everyday living is not good. Ten to 20% of elderly suffer enough from mental disorders like depression and anxiety to need medical help, and most do not receive it. Depression can be successfully treated with antidepressants like Prozac, along with cognitive behavioral treatment and or intrapersonal psychotherapy. Caution must be used, though, since the elderly are more apt to suffer side effects from the medication. They are more likely to have problems with severe dizziness upon standing called postural hypotension, and are more likely to suffer injuries with resultant falls. The elderly are also at more risk for heart attacks because of the antidepressant. Despite the possible side effects of treating depression, not treating it can be lethal in the elderly. Some elderly with reduced physical abilities and increased incidence of disease spiral into hopelessness and increasing social isolation as they lose more personal control over their daily lives. Their suicide rate is higher than for any other age group. People over 65 are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than younger adults. White males between the ages of 80 and 84 had the highest rate of suicide per capita than all other age groups. Anxiety happens more than depression in the older set, but long-term use of benzodiazepines is dangerous. Cognitive behavioral therapy is recommended. Social theories of aging include disengagement, activity, continuity, and socio-emotional selectivity. Disengagement theory states that people in old age retreat from the mainstream of society by way of retirement and fewer responsibilities. Because the elderly disengage and are no longer as needed, society misses them less when death comes. Activity theory states that life satisfaction for the elderly depends on interacting with more people. Research has shown that quantity of social contacts is far less important than quality of them. Just increasing the number of social contacts will not contribute to a stronger psyche. Continuity theory states that to attain ego integrity and contentment, the elderly must establish a present and future that is in line with the past. This preserves their personal history. They seek to do familiar things with familiar people. Socio-emotional selectivity theory states that because of changing life conditions, the elderly have little interest in forging new relationships, but prefer to strengthen close bonds. The quality of higher priority relationships is enhanced because of the emotional maturity of the elderly to avoid conflict and to enable harmony. Marriages, family bonds with siblings and children, friendships are more stable and rewarding. Most older folks live in the community with relatives. Nursing homes have a poor track record with understaffing and inferior care. These homes are breaking the law if they accept elderly with psychological disorders. Only 5% of Americans over 65 live in nursing homes. Less than 25% of Americans over 85 live in nursing homes. Assisted living facilities are gaining in popularity as an alternative to nursing homes. Both are prohibitively expensive. Wherever the older person resides, it is important that he or she retains as much control over things as is feasible or possible. Elderly maltreatment exists in several forms: physical, psychological, sexual, financial, and physical neglect. Physical abuse includes hitting, restraining, cutting, burning, and other forms of inflicting pain on purpose. Psychological abuse includes yelling, name-calling, humiliating, treating like a child, and threatening to place in a nursing home. Sexual abuse includes any unwanted sexual touching or contact. Financial abuse includes stealing and unauthorized use of funds or property. Physical neglect includes deprivation of food, medicine, services, or company. Elder maltreatment is more likely to occur if some of the following risk factors are present: overdependency of the elder due to physical or mental disabilities, overdependency of the caretaker, perpetrator, on the elder's money or housing, psychological instability of the perpetrator due to undue stress, unemployment, alcohol, or drug abuse, family violence history with perpetrators having experienced child abuse, overcrowded, understaffed nursing homes with little monitoring and low wages. To successfully age, adults need more than an optimistic attitude, friends, and active life participation. In addition, society needs to do its part to contribute to the dignity of growing old. The United States should provide adequate health care for the elderly, adequate and safe housing, invigorating social services, and educational opportunities. It is a very sad commentary on our society to have elderly forced to choose daily between meals and medicine, between eating and taking their prescriptions because they cannot afford to do both. There is no justification for a country as great as ours to not adequately care for our senior citizens.